Most exceptional, however, is how this value reflected in his leadership. Naturally, having an entire nation at his disposal, Castro wanted to bolster the Cuban dairy industry as much as possible. But there was one problem. Cuba initially had two types of cows called La Reinas and Zebus. La Reinas came from the days when Spain ruled Cuba, and Zebus originated from India. Both of these cows are well suited to the Cuban environment, having a very high tolerance for heat. However, they don't produce much milk, they're mostly just raised for their meat. So Castro decides to import thousands of Holsteins from Canada. Holsteins are the classic black and white cows, and as we all know, you can juice these guys for days. They are utterly superior. Only problem is, they're used to living in Canada, so when they're plopped down under the scorching Caribbean sun, it's gonna stress them out. They're not gonna be laughing cows by any means. So as a result, Castro's imports still didn't put out enough milk to satisfy his desires. At this point, your average run-of-the-mill dairy queen would have given up. But Castro, he's more than that. He's a dairy dictator. So he ordered the construction of a giant air-conditioned complex with the sole purpose of providing a comfortable environment for his Holsteins. And it helped a little bit, but they were still stressed out. They still weren't putting out at their natural levels. And as you can imagine, climate controlling an entire facility is very expensive, so Castro was forced to abandon the project. But like the astronaut he is, Castro held on to his dream of finding the Milky Way. So he gathered a team of scientists and farmers and ordered them to breed together the Zebus and the Holsteins in order to produce a heat-resistant, lactose-pumping super cow. The breeding efforts were mostly a bust, never producing the bovine master race that Castro longed for. However, there was one exception. Under Castro's program, a single individual was born that met his expectations with flying colors. The cow was named Ubre Blanca, Spanish for white udder, and she produced world record-breaking volumes of milk, peaking at 110 liters a day. That's more than 29 entire gallons of lactation. Needless to say, Castro was absolutely euphoric at this isolated success of his. To say he went ballistic would be an understatement. He went intercontinentally ballistic. Like, India hasn't got shit on the levels of cow worship that Castro performed. Daily updates were published in the Cuban national newspaper describing Ubre Blanca's health and productivity, and when she died in 1985, Castro commissioned a giant marble statue of the cow in her honor. He also had scientists harvest tissue and egg samples for the sake of preserving her DNA. After Ubre Blanca's death, Castro's plans for the Cuban dairy industry got even more desperate and ridiculous somehow. This is based off of an actual conversation that he had with his team of scientists in 1987. Okay guys, hear me out. What if we make cows that are the size of dogs, so that way they can live in people's apartments with them? Fidel, I don't think that's gonna work. No, it'll work. You just have to grow grass in the apartment too. You can't be serious. Yeah, you just gotta put up some fluorescent lights. Bam, little grazing patch for your doggy cow. You are a fucking lunatic. And obviously nothing ever came of that idea, and Cuba's dairy industry is still floundering today, sadly. So yeah, if you haven't gotten the picture by now, the dude likes milk. Imagine he's at the birth of his grandson, right? Ah, what a beautiful baby boy. Fidel, there's something we need to tell you. Your grandson, he's lactose intolerant. Prepare the firing squad. Anyway, there's plenty of other miscellaneous stories surrounding his little preoccupation, like the time the CIA tried to poison his milkshake, so I just decided to highlight a few big ones. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Sam Manella, and thank you for watching. Hey kids, guess what? A swarm is coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon the hordes will rise. Assuming you live in the more temperate parts of the eastern United States anyway. I'm talking about cicada broods. Cicada broods are huge localized groups of cicadas that only emerge once every 17 years. Or 13 years depending on the brood, but same difference. Now only certain species of cicada follow a brood cycle, which is why you still see some every year. But believe me, when your local brood decides to emerge, you will know. At any given time, there are billions of immature cicadas found all across the East Coast and Midwest. All of them are underground, feeding off of fluid from tree roots, waiting silently for their internal clocks to start chiming in unison. 17 years of sucking sap in the dark. Sounds kinda like my childhood, am I right, ladies? The only difference is, at least the cicadas get laid afterwards. Anyway, once they're ready, the hordes will emerge all at once, around early to mid-June, crawling out from their bunkers and up tree trunks where they molt and spread their wings, leaving behind those shells that I always used to stick onto my shirt as a kid. Yeah, in hindsight, there's probably a reason girls never talk to me. After molting, the cicadas will only have around 2 months to mate, and after that time, all of the adults will die out, leaving only their eggs behind. Though it may sound strange, the pattern of being everywhere for 2 months and then suddenly disappearing is seen in many other places in nature. Anyway, eventually the eggs hatch and the larvae make their way underground, where they will live for another 17 years before repeating the cycle all over again. Now there's a total of 15 separate broods in the United States, each of which lives in a different location and follows a different schedule. So whereas West Virginia enjoyed their outbreak this year, Delawareans like me won't see our next plague until the year 2021. I won't give a full list of the various periods around the US, but I will put a link in the description to a table so you can see when your state is expecting. So yeah, if one summer that obnoxious buzzing sound seems even more annoying than usual, either you finally become a cynical bastard just like your father, or your local brood has decided to surface that year. Scientists often refer to the buzzing as a cicada song. At first I thought that was kinda ludicrous, but we do live in a world where vuvuzelas are considered instruments, so I guess anything is possible. Anyway, the noise is only made by male cicadas with the purpose of attracting females. Also, fun fact, if you're outside using power tools during a brood, you might want to wear protection, because the sound of buzzing machinery often confuses the females into swarming around the source of the noise. They're not dangerous, but they're still horny insects the size of your thumb, so unless you're into that, I'd recommend a face mask at least. Also, it should be noted that, while cicada songs are good if you wanna, you know, bang cicadas, they work significantly less well on human lovers. Ding. 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 Ugh, what do you want, Justin? It is 3 in the morning, don't make me call the cops again. Wait, Sarah, I just want to serenade you. If you're gonna start making that fucking noise again, I swear to Christ. I'm at my sister's house, Justin. How did you even find me here? Are you stalking me? No, I just followed the scent of your pheromones. First thing in the morning, I'm filing a restraining order. Oh yeah? Well, I hope the next guy you mate with gives you abdominal fungus. What does that even mean? Susan, get the gun. Yipe! Justin away! Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching. Hey kids, today I'm going to talk about the Great Emu War. So here's what happened, right? Our story begins in Australia, home of the upside down whopper. The year is 1932. A very large chunk of the country's population lives on homesteads, just putting seeds in the ground and waiting for food to show up, you know. But their lives are hard. Firstly, Australian soil kind of blows. It's pretty terrible for farming. Like on a scale from Margaret Thatcher's corpse to Octomom, Australia's soil is a solid Hillary Clinton in fertility. Secondly, the whole Great Depression thing's going on, which automatically makes everything suck worse. And third, and possibly most important, is the emu infestation. These gangly dill holes were all over the place, just walking on crops and crapping on crops and crapping on walks and cropping on craps and crabbing on docks and captain on the rocks. You get the idea. So the government evaluated the situation. They were like, well, let's weigh our options here. As a government, we could start spending even more money to secure the welfare of our citizens through this socioeconomic crisis. Money that we barely even have. Or, alternatively, we could just start fucking slaughtering emus, so at least it looks like we're helping. So that's what they did. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Australian military was put in command of the operation, and he had a total of 2 soldiers at his disposal, each of which had a light machine gun. Additionally, the pair was given a total of 10,000 rounds of ammunition to be spent on taking out emus. So on paper that sounds like a piece of cake. They're basically just big turkeys on stilts, so how hard could it be? Well, apparently, pretty freaking hard. Let me learn you kids a thing or two about emus. First of all, emus are tough as hell. Their bodies are basically like meat-laden tanks. They can definitely take a bullet or 3 and still keep running long enough to get away. Secondly, these fuckers have tactics. Like guerrilla warfare, it ain't got shit on emu warfare. They start out in a big herd or flock or pod, I don't really know. Let me Google it. Okay, a group of emus is technically called a mob. So you got a big mob of emus, right? And as soon as they sense danger, they break up into a bunch of little mobs and start scattering scattering in every direction. So if you're spraying them down with a machine gun, you can't just whip it around all over the place. You have to focus your fire on one group at a time, meaning most of the others could get away pretty easily. I don't know if they had like a huddle beforehand or if this is just some coincidental product from their ridiculous bird mines, but it was effective either way. So between these two things, taking out the emus ended up being a huge struggle. Here's the story on what happened. So the crew went out in search of emus. The first time they found a mob, they started shooting before the guns were in range, so most of the emus got away. The second time, they waited until the emus were closer, but then the gun jammed, so most of the emus got away. And this sort of pattern went on for a while. At one point, they tried getting on the back of a truck first so they could chase down the mob, but the truck wasn't fast enough to catch up and the ride was so bumpy that they couldn't aim properly, so most of the emus got away. By the time they got a fourth of the way through their ammo, after 2,500 shots, only 300 or so had been killed, which is tiny compared to the 20,000 birds said to be roaming the outback. At this point, they were like, alright, if I have to look at one more of these Jimmy-legged big bird wannabes, I'm gonna start screaming, so you know what? Fuck it. Let the farmers handle it. Then the farmers were like, hey jackholes, we're still starving out here. You still haven't given us those subsidies you promised. We had to feed the kids fucking dingo meat, which, you know, it's a nice change of pace to have the kids eating the dingoes for once, but that's beside the point. Could you dicks keep at least trying to help us? Thanks. The guys were like, alright, don't get your bogans in a bundle. We'll keep going if only to prove a point. So they kept going, just finding mobs, thinning them out slightly, rinse and repeat, until finally they only had like 100 bullets left. In total, the unit only had 986 confirmed kills. Some emus might have also died from their wounds after the fact, but still, a very large portion of the hordes was still alive. So the military was forced to surrender for real this time. Yes, that's right kids, the emus won the war. Of course, their victory didn't last too long, because after the failed operation, the government put out a bounty on the emus, and that worked pretty well. Something like 50,000 bounties ended up being cashed out over 6 months in 1934. So the lesson here, kids, is that if you want to commit mass murder, don't crowdfund, crowdsource. Anyway, till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching. Hey kids, today I'm going to talk about the different kinds